Welcome to Caffeine Confessionals. This is our first podcast. My name is Allan and Nikki. You might know my challenge articles or my face. This is my co-host, editor, copywriter, author of the only book I bought this year, The Anxiety Diaries, Miss Nikki Sin.
Hi. How's it going?
It is cold in California because of COVID. I haven't gotten a haircut in 11 months. It's been quite a time. And, people are like, oh, why don't you just shave your head? Why don't you just shave your head? When I was in the 11th grade, I decided to Pedro it, like from Napoleon Dynamite, and shave my head. Only shaved like the smallest part right here, then combed all my hair over it out of fear at the last second, because I was like, no, I can't do this. And after that day, I decided just not going to shave my head. Also, it's not like I'm going anywhere, so this long hair, it's here for the ride.
Yeah, you know what? Embrace it.
Yeah,
walk around like a pony. My little pony just.
No, yeah, I do a lot of headband type stuff where it's just crazy up and stuff like that. Especially when working out, doing yoga. Man, you get into a certain pose and then all your hair just flops into the middle of your face and it's getting into your mouth. It's the worst.
Well, you'll get that like challenge survivor look.
Yeah.
Just,
I need a buff. I need buffs.
Or like Big Brother, like immediately they're like, boom, yep, headband. Yep. Yeah. I don't know if Cody and Polly were born with them, but it looked like it.
Oh, definitely. They came out the womb in headbands.
Yeah.
Also, apologies, guys, that we just started our first new podcast and we just immediately went into rambling like that. But that's the experience. That's what you're going to get out of us. I'll say this, that when I first started writing about the challenge, it wasn't because I wanted to write about the challenge necessarily. It was I just had a lot of opinions, I had a lot of thoughts, had a lot of jokes that I wanted to say, and the challenge was kind of a vehicle for it. And along the way, a lot of people liked it. And that made me happy because for once, I was giving my opinions and people were listening. How about you, Nikki?
I just like talking. Also, I was like raised on reality TV. I didn't get it so much as the Americans did. For listeners that don't know, I am Canadian. I live in Toronto, Ontario. So everything that I saw was on like MTV Canada. But like,
yeah,
we have like Survivor night at my house. You know, we have Big Brother night. We have Challenge night. It's a big deal. Like we make a dinner.
Wow.
Oh,
that's huge because I'm such a like my family doesn't even know that I watch reality TV that much. Like they just know I just like maybe do stuff and write stuff because I don't really tell them about it because they're not interested and they don't want to know. So to me, this reality TV stuff, like being able to share it into the social media world and having all these social media friends and readers, it's been wild. It's been cool because I get to share something with them. Recently, I got a friend into Survivor, and he's watched a few seasons, and he'll message me about it, and it's opened up my world because having someone who in your real life wants to watch a reality show, it's been crazy for me. It's been awesome.
It's so crazy when I find out that like my friends watch the challenge. I think I have maybe like 2 or 3 friends that actually watch it, but they're like, "Wait, you watch the show?" I'm like, "Dude, I interview these people. This is all that I talk about." Like everybody's like, "Oh, the Christmas season's here. I can't wait." I'm like, "No, it's challenge season."
Yeah, I was in an academic field competition, and in that competition there was this guy from Utah who I viewed very highly because he was like they don't really have a lot of top competitors out in Utah, but he was just elite. And I was just like, man, this guy, if he was able to figure out how to be this good at this competition by himself with no support, I can do that here in California with all the support where the competition level is very high. And I messaged him one day and he's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool because he was in like actually the same Harry Potter group as I was. And he's like, all right. And then one day I get a message from him. He's like, wait, do you write about the challenge? He's like, I just saw your tweets and your articles and he and I have become pretty good friends since then. And it's one of those wild things where this guy I looked up to is like, now he reads my articles.
Oh my god, I love that.
Yeah. Also, for people who don't know, this channel, the goal of it is that we are going to be putting out a podcast once a week during the season. We're going to probably recap every episode. On top of that, I'm just going to be putting up content to supplement my articles. You're going to get some fun stuff on there. Just really good, quick stuff. And I think as a whole, our goal is to cover more than the challenge as well. I
Yeah.
think we're going to want to talk about Big Brother. We're going to want to talk about Survivor. We're going to want to talk about. I mean, do you watch MasterChef? I love some MasterChef.
I love to pretend that I'm on MasterChef.
Yeah, I mean, I only say that because lately I've been getting a bunch of MasterChef recommendations in my feed, and at one point MTV was even sending me MasterChef episodes early that I wasn't watching, like the production company. And one day they just sent me the email like, "Hey, are you watching these?" And I was like, "No," but
No, but
that
thank
show's
you.
fantastic. That show's fantastic. I mean, I love watching people cook food.
I'm a Geordie Shore gal. That's why I'm like a Kyle stan. That's right. I'm admitting I'm a Kyle stan.
Now I've watched a few of the X on the Beach UKs, and they I can't watch the American version anymore because the UK version just blows it out of the water.
So much better. They were like built for that drama.
I My thing with American television is that there's a real lack of oral sex in reality TV shows that just isn't realistic with real life. Like I don't know about this, but in real life there's a lot of oral sex, especially between people just hooking up casually. And you never see that in the challenge. You just never see it that much.
Well, except for Leroy and Naya.
And even then, that was like
That
a
they're like
backstage
allegedly.
bathroom, yeah, allegedly type stuff. So as a whole, we need more oral sex in TV in 2020.
Well,
That's my
it's
dream.
it's more realistic. I don't know if COVID is really that's the best time for it. But I'm sure COVID was the least disease worry on some of these challenges.
All right, for this episode, we are going to be talking about who are our least favorite challenge people to interview and our favorite. Uh, Next week, you can expect us to be putting out like a cast type breakdown, like a power ranking type stuff. But for our first episode, we didn't want to do that because we want to just show you who we are and just give us a little insight into our experience. How long have you been interviewing people from the challenge?
For the past five years now. Yeah, since like 2015. The first person that I interviewed was Zach Nichols.
Ooh, I know when I first started writing about the challenge as interviewing people, I would do research and I would read your interviews.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, there were insights I got from there, and
so
I would be
exciting.
like, I'd steal them and put them for my articles. Like, it's like, where'd you find this? Like, I found it from this article.
Ah!
I started doing it 3 years ago, the summer of 2017, and that's when I was just like first starting writing, and I would slide into every competitor's DMs, being like,
Yeah.
"Hey, could I get an interview? Could I do this? Could I do that?" And it was from the bottom of Real World to like the top of the challenge. I was sending those DMs, and it was always the people from the bottom who would reply. I think that's
But like that's the
expected.
way that you have to do it. It's like
Yeah, that's how you build up the ranks.
I the so the way that I like blast out emails to be like, hey, I'd love to like interview your client or like interview you for my website. It's just like I have no shame when I'm asking. I wish I had this sort of confidence, like I was like hitting on somebody at a bar or like, applying for a job, but I'm like, hey, Barack Obama, you want to come on the NikkiSin.com and be on TMI Tuesday? Like, I I wish I had that like the same confidence that I'm like as soon as I get that to like contact info, I'm like, or I'll like send them a I don't know, like a Snapchat or like a TikTok,
Yeah,
a
I feel
comment on
that.
it. I'm like, hey, love to have you on
I think
the blog.
as I get older, I'm not the type of person just to jump in someone's DM like that. At the same time, I do have a level of confidence now with the amount of interviews that I've done. Like
Yeah.
for me at this point, like I have a working relationship with MTV at points where they will set up interviews for me, and because of that, I've interviewed almost every big name on the challenge at this point, and it's almost made me a bit too confident in myself at times, but when people are like, who excites you on the show? I'm like, nobody, because I've heard from almost all of them at this point. Or the ones I haven't heard from, I've either declined or they don't want to talk to me either. Because, I mean, do you want to interview Jenna Compano? I don't know what her last name's pronounced. Uh, and I've written so many bad things about Jenna over the years that I just did not feel the need to interview her. So they asked me, and I was like, hey, I'm going to respectfully decline, especially because I wanted to, in some ways, respect her and Zach's relationship because I've bagged on it for 4 years now.
You mean because I so for me, because Zach was my first MTV interview, I've always been like, okay, you know what? I always give Zach a lot of slack. I'm like, you know what? He's just really competitive, or he's focused, he's ambitious. And then the more I like rewatch seasons, and the more I see him, I'm like, you are verbally abusive. I don't like this.
It's
So
rough. I mean,
that's
because
fair.
I like to hype my interviewees up because, in my opinion, when you're really nice to your interview, like who you're interviewing, they will give you more. They will give you more
Yeah.
tea, more hot takes because they'll just feel more comfortable. Their juices get flowing, and they just get a little bit more wild. They'll shoot from the hip. Whereas if you're a little combative, they'll just shut down right there for the interview, and they'll just close themselves off, and they won't give you anything good.
And it's sort of like I don't I can get the vibe from them based on how they try to portray themselves on screen, but whether I want to have a chat with them. Like there's some people that I feel like I probably couldn't have like a genuine interview with. Like I don't think I could talk to like Joss. Just like I'd be like, you're just very pretty. Uh,
No, I mean it
I
was
wouldn't
it
know
was
what to
huge for
say.
me because I interviewed Wes, and Wes is like my challenge, like
Love Wes.
icon, because I think he's like the most important player ever because he always makes the show interesting, regardless of how you like dislike him or like him. He makes the show better. Uh, and I talked to him for 80 minutes, and it was a dream come true as a fan, but as an interviewer, I'm transcribing my interviews when they're on the call, when they're on calls, because I didn't have a podcast before where I could bring people on, they could just hear it. So I'm transcribing it, and he's talking for 80 minutes, and a 15-minute transcription takes like an hour or two. An 80-minute transcription takes like, because the more time and like a transcription goes, it mentally breaks you. It's almost like running. Like you could
Yeah.
run a mile like pretty quickly, but you can't run 10 miles really quickly at times. I mean, some people can, but it just it just buries you really quickly. And so it was one of the best phone calls of my life, but from a transcription slash interview point of view, it was terrible. I mean, the article itself was like I think a 22-minute read with like 5,000 words and 30 minutes excluded out of it.
It's and sometimes like transcribing from phone interviews or like Skype interviews, it gets difficult when you're like re-listening to a part that you were like squeamish about or like felt like you can feel the feelings again. I'm like, oh, I'm awkward again. Like I interviewed Chingy, the rapper.
Oh wow.
I know, childhood
Baller
crush.
Holiday Inn,
Oh,
George Lopez show.
banger tracks. But
Yeah.
he started. I was like, oh, like one of my a regular question that I ask because the segment's called TMI Tuesday. I'm like, since today's TMI Tuesday, can you tell the reader something about you that they might not already know? And he's like, oh, I'm really into like Egyptology. I'm like, you what? You're into what? Egypt Egyptology. I am not a poker player, but let me tell you, I had to figure out some sort of poker face to be like, okay, you're not. Oh, all right.
Yo, Chingy was bringing heat to that interview that you just weren't expecting. That was
I
just.
know, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that
So
tut he was laying down.
we're going to talk about our 3 best interviews and our worst. But so to start off, what was your third best?
My third best. I'm gonna say Challenge Bloodlines, Candace, Leroy's cousin, Blue.
Yeah.
I know she didn't. I felt awful that she like got DQ'd. She broke her toe. If you remember,
I do, yeah.
the little incident breaking her toe, and so she couldn't continue to compete, which sucked. But she had so much heart, and she was like, when I did the interview with her, she was so sweet, and she was just excited to talk about her experience. She wasn't like, I find a
Yeah,
lot of like get brought on or like immediately are like, yeah, I'm on MTV. I'm on MTV. Yeah, I'm a TV star. She was just like, yeah,
I
cool.
I always feel bad for the people who pretty obviously aren't going to get recast, but just have so much passion for the show. Because I mean, on the one hand, they did get to live like their dream, and on the other hand, you have to somewhat understand where you are, in the MTV pecking order. Along with that, that's complete BS because if you really want something, you should go out there and try and get it however you can. So at the end of the day, you could achieve your dreams. You're still going to get clown for it on Twitter, but
Yeah,
at
by
least
us.
try. I mean, at least they can say they tried. At least they can say they try to, keep their try to maintain that status on the show.
Yeah, she was super sweet though, and like I still talk to her. She just bought a copy of my book, which I was like, and she like messaged me. She's like, "Dude, I just got this grade." I was like, "Oh my, thank you."
I love that. That's fantastic. Oh my God, Candace just got raised like so many levels in my book.
Yeah, I would love to see
Buying
her
your
come
book,
back.
raise her in my book.
Like, I would love to see her come back because I feel like um, Leroy is just like linked to either bananas or like Nani or girls he hooks up with.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think it would be kind of cool to see like something that he has from outside, or like bring back old Mike. You know,
Yeah.
they're
I
fun to
don't think
hang out.
Mike wants to come back, but that would be fun. It would be fun to bring some people back. My third best interview was Devin
Devin
from
Walker.
yeah, Devin Walker. And it's actually a really funny story because I had DM'd him like 3 times. Like once was like, "Hey, would you want to could I interview you?" And then a second time a couple months later, "Any chance I could interview you?" And then the third time, like, "Last time I'm gonna send this message, but I gotta shoot my shot. Could I interview you?" And the funny thing is, most people who don't reply to you, they don't have their read receipts on. He had his read receipts on every time. So I'm seeing that I'm being left on red. And but like for me, it's one of those things where I said like I'm gonna take this shot because he was hot after a certain point, like feuding with Bananas after winning the Are You the One show. People wanted to read about him, so I wanted to write about it. And then one day after the Bananas elimination, I think that week, I was sitting in a college class. It was a 4-hour class. I was half an hour in, and I get an email from MTV. Yeah, you go a week for 4 hours. That's how it works. You get so that way you don't have to go all week, but you really mentally endure that 4-hour class.
I think I did that in high
Uh,
school. I not
no,
4 hours.
and I get an email while I'm in class from MTV. It's like, hey, could you interview Devin half an hour? And because I was supposed to be at school that day, I had like a meal prep dish, a big jug of water. I grab my stuff, I grab my bag, and I close my laptop and I walk out of the classroom. And it's half an hour in, so there's another 3 hours in this class. I go to my car. I drive to like a Wendy's, like 15 minutes away, and I just do the interview in their parking lot.
I
And it
love
was
that.
one of the best. It was one of the best interviews ever because he was drunk and but he was a competent drunk, and that he was just shooting from the hip, saying some wild stuff that I had to just leave off the air, and then some I actually put in the article. But it was just fantastic. That was just
Oh,
an
I love when
optimal.
I love when they say things they shouldn't say. I interviewed Anthony from Are You the One, and then he was on Invasion.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, TMI Tuesday, like, what's something people might not know about you? He's like, I'm really good with my tongue. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
okay,
he was shooting his shot.
cool. But then it's funny because maybe like 2 or 3 years later, like, he emailed me and was like, hey, do you mind just like taking that part out? Because I'm a real estate agent now, and like when you Google my name, like our interview comes up, and I don't really want people to see that. I'm like, you know that
I
if you
will,
Google your name and like you could watch a whole show where you're acting a certain way?
that takes a little bit more work. You need cable. You need the cable access.
Yeah, I was like, all
Uh,
right.
I will say that I'm actually really conscious of that now because there was a point in time where whenever I would mention Big Easy dying in the Gauntlet 3 final, I would or just Big Easy in general, I would put RIP Big Easy. Like, you know.
Oh,
And I got at least 5 or 6 DMs over the years. Like, when did Big Easy die? And like there were people who legitimately thought like those are just the people who messaged me who thought Big Easy died. There's probably like 30 people out there who just thought he died.
oh,
And when I met him in Challenge Media Nashville, it's like, hey man, I apologize because like if you Google your name, my articles come up and they say you're dead, but I'm like, just making a joke. And you know, I think you're a good person. I'm glad you lost this weight. And he was like, I don't know anything about that. And it was just, all right,
uh,
cool.
all right. He's
No,
like,
it was
I
just
don't know anything about that, but now I hate you.
but it is one of those moments where like my ego got too high and was immediately taken down. But then I was like, nah, never mind. That was just Big Easy. Who cares?
Yeah, I don't know what Devin saw in him.
He's tall. I mean, tall men have gotten away a lot with this world.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, the one tall man that can get away with anything, Pete Davidson. If you're listening for any
yeah.
reason, just let you know. You get away with whatever you want, especially with me. Shoot your shot.
Who's your second best interview?
My second best interview was Marie Roda. She was she was so fun, and it was so like natural just to talk to her. Um, I mean, lately I have conflicting political opinions with her. Um, as I know that she's not an open Trump supporter, and nobody quote me on this. She just agrees with Trump's views on the economy, I believe.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think she comes from a conservative family. I'm just conjecturing, but yeah, I mean, her tweets have been a bit suspect for someone who is very liberal. I mean, like myself, I like to call myself a closet liberal, uh, because I'm liberal on the outside, but like I'm very hardcore liberal in the closet. Because it's you don't want to be the guy who like dampers people's fun, like, hey guys, that's socially not correct. You can't make that type of joke anymore in 2020. And especially because like my readership is like it's very male oriented because I'm a very objective sports type of guy, and that attracts a lot of dudeish bro guys, and
yeah.
they'll put in comments and replies to people like that'll be like slut shaming girls. They're like, that's kind of not cool, man. I'm just out here trying to be a
Also,
good person.
well, don't slut shame.
Yeah, it's pretty simple in
Slut
2020.
fame it. It's not a
Yeah,
walk of shame. It's a walk of fame. Don't slut shame.
more
It's
oral
walk.
sex in
It's slut shame.
2020.
Thank you.
More oral,
Sorry, mom. I know she can probably hear me.
and I agree. I interviewed Marie 4 times, maybe three. I interviewed her after Invasion. I interviewed her for Dirty 30, and then we had an interview about Pizzagate, where I only asked her questions about pizza. And then MTV set up an interview with us. And I'll be honest with you, this was when I was dumb. And I mean, I'm still dumb today, but I didn't have my recorder on
Oh
because
no.
my brain was like, yeah, I'm a smart guy. I'll remember everything she says.
No.
And I think I might have misquoted her. And also, her interview answers were a bit problematic at times. in that she was going to create a lot of enemies with some of her answers, and she was getting inundated with Twitter hate. And in that moment, I think I may have, like, cleaned up her answers a little bit to make it a little bit more fair so she wouldn't get inundated with hate on Twitter. That was just wrong. That was just wrong by me because I skewered her words. But at the same time, she was kind of, I mean, she wasn't happy about it either. But I was always a fan of her, and it was not, it's not a good interaction as a whole. And I mean, I apologize for that. I've apologized to her multiple times, but yeah, that was the experience with.
Oh, I was watching Battle of the Seasons the other day, and I was putting it on my Instagram stories. It's me filming it, by the way. I'm like, ooh. uh, yeah. And Marie saw it, and she's like, "Oh, it was the scene where she like pushes Sam," which like,
Yeah,
okay, she didn't push Sam, she pushed Derek technically.
yeah, that's
Because
fair
Derek
enough.
got in Rob's face,
Hmm.
and I no blame on that part. Um, Sam was hella annoying anyways. I probably would have pushed her too. I, what the Potter that she got pushed into had more personality than Sam did. Didn't didn't like her. Um, but Marie messaged me. She's like, "Oh, she's like, I think the next episode is when I'm like, you are what you eat." I don't know. It's like perfect. And then of course, like Nani and Frank are fighting, and this is. It should be known that this is this podcast this show is a Nani safe zone, right? Like we love
Yeah,
Nani.
one
We
thousand
stand.
percent.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just letting everyone know. Our Lord and Savior
So
Nani. We stand.
yeah, I don't understand hating on Ani because she's just so human, personally.
Thank you.
So my second best interview was Cara Maria, and this was a text-based interview where I would send the questions in a Q&A format, and they would send their text responses. And that was before I was too chicken to do phone interviews back then. And her and I had a really good relationship because I would write articles really hyping her up and, like, treating her like the messiah that her cult does now. And so she agreed to do the interview after her Vendettas win. And the girl put in so much thought into her answers, and they were long, really well written
Yeah.
answers too. And she's actually that was the thing that was, like, shocking, is that she's, like, not shocking, but she's hyper intelligent. She was giving good, because other people will, like, send short responses, or the ones that do give longer responses, they're very grammatically incorrect, tons of type. I mean, I shouldn't be
Yeah.
talking, I'm dyslexic, but Kara's were well thought out, really thankful, and just showed that she actually had a brain, which was crazy because you don't see that a lot from people on the challenge.
No, they don't really
Yeah.
give them like an intelligence edit.
Yeah. On top of that, like, as I mentioned before, when you do the phone interviews, you can get more out of them. When you do the text interviews, they can close off whatever. They're like, should I put this in? No, I'm taking this out.
Yeah, I do a lot of text interviews because of like time zone differences.
Yeah, and that was my thought process too with it, where I was like, hey, could you, like, so that way you can get back to me on your time. But a lot of these reality stars, they just never want to write anything. They don't want to write anything in their life
No.
because they stopped writing in the second grade, and it's a big
Yeah,
ask to them.
it's it's really frustrating sometimes to get the answers. I'm like, can you just type them out? You're sitting on your phone.
All right, so who is, yeah, who is your worst interview?
Oh my god. Nicole Z. I think that was my worst one. I interviewed her before she was on the challenge. I interviewed her right after her season of The Real World Skeletons. Um, she was just, she was really like brash and was not, I don't know. She was rude. I thought she was rude. I think I said that she was a paramedic or and she was like, I'm an emergency response worker. I'm like, I apologize. I mixed that up. Uh, Sorry. Shit. And she's like one of the only cast members that hasn't, like, when I would tweet about it, I'm like, oh, I did this interview with Nicole. Like, you should check it out. Didn't like the tweet. Didn't retweet it. I was like, do you want anyone to know that this exists? And then it's the minute she gets on like Invasion, starts annoying me on the screen anyway. So I'm like, perfect. I'm already over this. And then
Yeah,
this
a lot of people
cast
don't
photo.
like her, and I don't like her, but I did not inundate her with hate. I did not flood her with hate like other people were on Twitter making fun of her. And I've been blocked on Twitter by her for years, and I don't even know why. Maybe I made fun of the fact that she couldn't do a puzzle, but she couldn't do a puzzle. And because of
No,
that, she blocked me on Twitter.
her and Corey trying to do like a Kinder Surprise toy fucking puzzle, and they keep getting
They wanted
that.
to grab it. Like, can we carry the puzzle? Can we carry the puzzle with us?
Like, come on. Yeah, I don't give her. I feel like a lot of the hate that she gets um, is a lot of the similar hate that Jenny gets, Jenny West, where they're like, "Oh, she looks like really manly." I'm like, I don't think that's a fair hate to throw out.
Yeah, I don't like any hate like that. My thing is that it's just her overall personality, just her vibe,
I
her
she's
voice.
I
It's
find her
flat.
annoying. I find her annoying. I absolutely. This is not a person that if I were interacting with them, like say I were in the challenge house or I was in a real world house with her, I we would not vibe. No, absolutely not. I no. It'd just be like pounding back shots with Tony or something. I couldn't. That's not for me. She's very. And then like X on the Peak, she was too much. And how dare
She was
you hurt my
toxic.
girl Lowell?
Yeah, she's just flat out toxic.
She's like, "Oh, I'm such a player." I'm like, that's not a good thing. People don't like that. That's not a bragging thing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
My
Who's your
my
worst?
worst interview. Okay, so just a side story was that Violetta Millerman from Real World Skeletons. I'm not counting her in this because she was never on the challenge. But for when I was rising up the ranks really early on, I was like, "Hey, do you want to do an interview?" And she's like, "Okay." And she like I gave her the questions, and she was like, and then she said the response like, "All right, later." And it was just hilarious because like it was almost like I was like, "Hey, do you want to do this interview?" She's like, "Not only am I going to give you an interview, but it's going to be so bad you never want to ask me again." Like that's how I felt the vibe was. I mean, I'm really happy she did it. The article actually got a decent amount of clicks, but even people like replying to the article like she does not sound like she was having a good time. She was like,
She
I was like,
wasn't.
yeah, I'm like, I'm just out here like this was the easiest and the worst interview to ever do in my life because she
Oh,
like sent she just did it like without even like showing any like care about it, and it was I love it. It was so hilarious that it was bad, but it was such a good type of bad. It was such a unique experience. And the actual worst for me is Emily Schromm. And
really?
yeah. So I was told that I was going to interview CT, Bananas, and Emily following their win on Champs vs. Stars 2.
Great.
Bananas was on TRL, so he was
Yeah,
not in the
that makes
interview because
sense.
he was on TRL. And then CT's kid's birthday was going on.
All right.
So CT was like only in there for like 5 minutes. And all my questions were written for CT and Bananas. I had like two Emily questions. And so I'm just sitting there on the phone and I was like, "So you like doing push ups? Is that what you like to do?" And I know you don't drink.
I know you don't drink, but would you like? My girlfriend's got an old Nuva ring.
Yeah, that was how the interview was essentially because I was like, "So when you're not at the gym, what other gym type stuff do you do?"
So you work out, yeah. You like to go to the gym, and so when you go to the gym, you work out.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
when you drive home, you like get from your car and you put on your M pack and you get it's like obviously what she does, it's amazing. She has great programs. I even paid for one of her programs. Did it for 2 weeks, lost 12 pounds. Felt great. It was awesome. Good stuff she has there. But from a personality standpoint, just didn't know what to ask her about really. And it was just so awkward, especially because that was like my second phone interview ever, with my first being 3 hours earlier. And that one was also bad because I could hear them laughing when they thought I hung up.
Who was it?
It was Justina, Josh Murray, and Michelle Watterson. And I was just nervous. So that was my bad. But like
Christina Valentine's delays.
they laughed at me after, but I was like, I deserve that. It felt that bad.
Well, okay, fair.
I'm one of those people where it's like people will like make fun of me of like, you know what, you got a point there. I'm like,
Yeah,
but
I
like,
self-deprecate enough that I'm like, oh, like a pencil, you got a point.
now who's been your best interview?
My best, um, it's got to be, which is, and they're connected because they're exes. It's
Ooh.
Marlet from Real World Portland, which sucks because he could have he could do so much better on the challenge now. He's like a total
I don't
fitness
know.
junkie.
He's kind of too. He's kind of he looks a little too big to me. I don't know if it's functional towards what the challenge wants, or like what's conductive to it.
And Jemmye. Jemmye is my queen. I love Jemmye.
Jemmye is so good with fans and just being such a good person,
Yeah.
and that like the way she just responds to people because I've never had that relationship with Jemmye, and so many people just go to bat for her. And it's like she's just so caring, and that's something that I can really appreciate because people who actually fans so huge. Not to knock on Jenna again, but I think Jenna could have been like one of the biggest stars the show's ever had, based on the way they were pushing her like 3, 4 years ago. But
Yep.
Jenna never showed that she cared about the fans, like, and that's like the big problem because the challenge is such a fan-oriented show.
And she doesn't
And
show that she cares about the show at all, it feels like.
yeah, I mean, again, another person people don't like, Brittany Thornton, for a long time there was having a good relationship with the fans when she was first on the show. And people would actually be fans of her, which sounds crazy now with everything that she's done. But in the time period, people were like, "Oh yeah, Stan Brittany," and like, I'm like, no, she's really good at working and talking to fans, and less so at being good at being on the show. Because if you watch the show, she's not doing much, but her fans are talking about her because she interacts with them.
Yeah. She's sort of like a hot mess, like Maddie.
Her when I mentioned like illiterate type interviews, hers was a bit because I did interview her at one point, but she has me blocked now. Hers was a little sus.
Brittany?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think she might have been a little intoxicated because some of the senses weren't coming all together, and I had to guess what she was saying.
It's not surprising. I think she feels like another person that like if I was in a house with her, I probably wouldn't get along with her. Or I would get along with her and it would be too much for everyone.
See, I'm too. I'd get along with everyone just because I'm used to managing people's egos. I guess I don't know.
I would just look like Jim from The Office. I'd be like, huh?
I love that. My best interview was Jordan. Uh, and
Really?
yeah, it was just I get why people hate Jordan because he's obviously he's self-admitted like he's a bit of a dick, and the stuff he did on Real World with Naya are just like kind of it's kind of disgraceful. At the same time, to me, I don't think people give him enough credit for trying to be better, because there is
Yeah.
like the childhood state. It's like the thing is like, are you mad that you got caught, or are you mad that you did it? And I feel like Jordan is more on the side that he's mad that he did it. And he's obviously, he's politically conservative from, like, he grew up politically conservative, but I think he's more conscientious as a conservative than a lot of liberals actually are. If you look at the people he surrounds himself with the lifestyle he lives, everything that he does, it's very socially conscious, in my opinion. And to label him a racist, I mean, that's fair, because in the real world that's true, but doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, for just being a more thoughtful person than he gets credit for.
I wouldn't, and I don't know. I feel like I don't have the background to say this as a white person. I wouldn't label Jordan as a racist. I would label him as somebody that has made racist comments.
Yeah, I agree.
In the same
I'm
sense
just
that the D made racially insensitive comments.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing: I'm not black, so they can label him racist if they want. That, to me, that's fine.
Oh yeah,
But
I'm
me personally, as a proud Latino man, I think he's someone who wants to learn. I think he actually does care, even if he does come off a bit pretentious at times. And when I interviewed him, he talked a lot about, because his company was doing the masks for COVID, and they were donating masks during that time. And he was talking about the safety of the workers, and he was going into really big detail of how just the whole lineup is going, how they hire people, how they're able to, get people paid, stuff like that, and make sure it's all safe. And he is very detail oriented, and he cares about stuff like that. And it's way more thoughtful than most challengers will ever be in their life. And I found that really impressive. Also, he would shoot from the hip as well. He was willing to say things that other competitors weren't. I mean, he knows that people hate him for the turbo stuff, and he was very willing to say that Turbo was the most overrated competitor and go into detail and really just explain it.
well, I with the whole Turbo Jordan thing, I think that Turbo has an entirely different like idea of like social normities based
Yeah.
on his culture. When he's like, "You will not copy my walk," and I'm like, "That's Conor McGregor. That's what he's doing the billionaire strut. He's not copying your
Yeah,
walk."
my thing with Turbo was that I think people built him up too much to be a superhero that he began to believe he was
Yeah.
actually a superhero. I mean, I don't know. If I make like 3 shots on the basketball court, I think I can't ever miss again. So I get it, but it was rough. And yeah, Jordan was just one of the best. And I interviewed Tori the next week, and she was good too, but nowhere near it. And then also honorable mention to someone I didn't talk about earlier, Ashley, because she called me honey
I
like 87 times, and every time she called me honey, my heart warmed.
I've never interviewed her, but she's like on Twitter with the fans. She's great. She
It
interacts
was
with them.
just wrapping up now. Nikki, tell them where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's the Nikki Sin, and you can find me just on that World Wide Web on www.thenikkisin.com.
Oh, so you have a book right now.
I do have a book. I wrote a book. It's a poetry book. It's called The Anxiety Diaries, Part One, or sorry, Book One, past. It's available on Amazon. It's worldwide. Buy it
I was about to
globally.
grab it from my room right now, but it's a little too far.
I was like going to reach for it, but
Yeah.
I have it next to Halsey's poetry book right now, which is amazing. And if for some reason Halsey's also listening to this, I love you. Her poetry book is amazing, and I'm like inspired because I'm like I'm ready to write book two because I'm gonna write book
I will
two
second this.
when I'm road tripping next month. So,
I'm seconding this. Halsey, I also love you.
what a queen! She does no wrong.
No wrong. And you can find me at the Allan and Nikki on Twitter. Technically on Instagram as well, but I don't really use my Instagram that much. I put some dank memes on there, like at the beginning of the year or like at the beginning of COVID, and then gave up after day 4 or day 5. You can also find me on Medium at thealanagiri.medium.com, and that's where you'll find my challenge articles.
Heck yeah.
And also, caffeineconfessionals.com. That's going to be our website for our podcast feed once we get this on places like Spotify and Google Play and stuff like that. So that's where you'll find us. Please subscribe to this page because we're going to be putting out a lot of content. A lot of content.
Between the two
Like
of
too
us,
much. Yeah, just too much.
overflow.
So hope you guys have a good day. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Heck yeah.